Okay.
Hi, everybody. I'm here with my friend Sam, who is in upstate New York, right?
Yep.
What's the name of the town?
I actually live in Lodi right now, which is right in the heart of the Finger Lakes in between Seneca and Cuba Lake.
I miss water.
It is one of the things I miss most.
Yeah. When you're in a city or like where I am, it's beautiful vistas everywhere, but it's hard to get to lakes that look like lakes. Like we have reservoirs, but they're like bare around the edges of them.
And usually there's some kind of like plant or processing facility on the edge of it.
Yeah.
It's just different.
It's not like upstate New York and Maine.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, from where I live right now, within a 10 or 12-minute drive, I can get to the dead center of either of the two largest Finger Lakes and just see endless water up each side. So it's the best.
Gorgeous. Yeah. And they're huge. They're miles long, right?
I think Cuba Lake is 45 miles long and Seneca Lake is a little longer than that. So
yeah. Amazing. I went to a summer camp one year. It was a weird summer camp. It was like it was weird for me because I wasn't raised religiously. It was like a Bible camp.
Oh, yeah.
But I just wanted to go to camp. So I did it.
Yep. I can actually kind of trace the very beginnings of my fitness and teaching life to when I used to teach Vacation Bible School when I was 13 years old. Like everybody would split up and you do the classroom stuff, you do this. And I was always like, let me do the outdoor stuff. So
awesome. Well, let's talk about it. Yeah, I want to hear about this. This is your roots. These are your roots right here.
These are the true roots if we're getting back to it. I was raised in I believe it was a Protestant church. And every summer there was Vacation Bible School. And after you went through Vacation Bible School, there was almost the expectations that you would help teach the next younger kids. So a bunch of us would show up and teach every week, and they would always split us into sections of, you're going to go into the chapel and do this, and you're going to go into the kitchen and do this stuff. And I was always just like, I'll go outside and play tag with everybody.
Yeah.
So I would always teach tag and freeze tag and leapfrog. And the church we were at had this really big hill. So I actually ended up talking to a friend of mine's father who ran a construction company, and he had these giant rolls of plastic. So we took this, it was probably 10 feet wide by 80 feet long, put it all the way down the hill, hooked the hose up, and had a water slide one day.
That is amazing.
The coolest thing probably ever done up to that point in my life.
Yeah.
I've just always been an outside and active kind of person. So my parents heat their house by a wood stove, and it wasn't until probably right before I moved out of New York State that we cut all of our own wood. My parents owned 13 acres of property, and every year we'd go out there and cut down all the dead trees and split them and stack them for the next winter. So that's where it all really started, was out in the woods just hauling stuff around. So
yeah. I'm just thinking about how the rhythm of that, being in that rhythm in your life of, okay, it's early fall or late fall or whatever, and it's time to cut the wood, and then spring comes and you do different things, and I think we missed that.
Oh yeah, this kind of hops forward 15 or 20 years, but one of the things I missed most about when I lived in Philadelphia for the past 8 years before I moved back here was this rhythm of life that was, late summer into the fall. We've got wood to split because we've got a house to heat during the winter time. And when the winter time comes, there's, hunting that we do to put meat in the freezers and stuff like that. And then when the springtime comes, we've got gardens to get ready so that we can grow food for the summertime. And there was just this really nice circle of life that happens. Yeah. And when I moved into the city, it wasn't there anymore. And I felt very disconnected from everything. That's a huge jump forward from my roots, but
yeah. The circle of life is which coffee shop do I go to today? What kind of donut do I want?
Yes, which I absolutely loved the coffee and donuts in Philadelphia, but
Yeah. Okay, so going back to camp, so you worked in the camp and you were kind of leading everyone through physical fitness, play, movement. What was your next I guess I should say for people who are watching and don't know you, that you're a movement coach, you're a strength coach. So that's why we're talking about this.
Yeah. So I'll just kind of like run through it kind of quickly, just so you can kind of see the overview of everything. I started with the Bible camp stuff. And then when I went to college at 17 or so, I was homeschooled from 3rd grade up. So for 8 or 9 years, I was homeschooled, and, you know, we were given this much work to do during the day. And as soon as you were done with it, you were done for the day.
Well, that sounds
so
amazing.
Oh, it was fantastic. I was done by 11 o'clock
Yeah.
so that I had the whole rest of the day, and I would ride my bike out to the woods and do that stuff. And my grandparents have a cottage down in the lake, so I would ride my bike down there. So when I went to college at 17, just kind of killing time between classes, I was like, I mean, I guess I'll go work out for a while. I'd never really done traditional weight training or anything like that. I might have done a little running here and there, but that was about it. And just meeting people in the gym and chatting with them and, you know, playing around and lifting weights, that was just fun. There was no structure to it whatsoever. But as I started to get more and more into it, I started squatting a lot. And I have a very particular memory of being in this very hole in the wall gym in Ithaca that is no longer there, sadly. It was called City of Ithaca Gym. And it was dark. It was, you know, half the lights were out on the ceiling. There was a little box fan over in the corner. If you were lucky, there was a little boom box in the corner that actually worked. But I would go up there and either back squat, or bench press. And I very specifically remember at one point, I was like, I could be really good at this. Like, I had that moment of like, I could be really strong and I could be really good at this. So I think that was the moment that really kicked everything into gear of just like, this is kind of going to be my path. And unfortunately, that was a year and a half before I graduated with a communications degree. I have a associate's degree in TV and radio production. And when I kind of made this decision, I was 2 semesters away, and I was so close to just saying, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore, and just stopping school. But luckily, both my advisor and other people were just like, finish it out. It's almost done. Get your degree and then go continue on to whatever you want to do.
Right.
So I finished that out and found a school down in Philadelphia that was called the National Personal Trainer Institute.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Basically a vocational school that like electricians or plumbers would go to, but it was for personal trainers. It was a 6-month program. I was there 30, 40 hours a week.
Wow.
Doing both classroom and like on the gym floor. This is how you perform this exercise. So after I graduated school, I worked for about a year, but then moved down to Philadelphia. And this was when I was, how old am I now? I'm 32 now. This was probably when I was about 23 or so, 24, somewhere in there. Moved to Philadelphia, did that, almost got a job teaching at Temple University before I had even graduated at the school.
Wow.
Teaching in a kines department, the basics of weight training. So
cool.
Everything kind of snowballed right out of school. I started working at Temple University, started working at a couple CrossFit gyms down there, and started getting big into lifting and basically all the things that you can do in CrossFit, from running to gymnastics to weightlifting. I have some undiagnosed ADD, so my brain is always going in 5 different directions at once. And CrossFit was like, I get to learn all of these things all at the same time. And so I would seek out the people who were really good runners and get them to teach me how to run. And a very good friend of mine was a Division I rower at Ithaca College. So every day we would do rowing workouts, and I would learn exactly how to do that. Weightlifting was always the thing that it kind of came back to, though. So I just kind of learned everything and just absorbed everything that I could over the course of the first 3 years or so I was down there. And then I got hurt. And
Yeah.
this was my first big injury that I had. Was during gymnastics practice. I was practicing backflips.
Mm-hmm.
And for the record, this was not my first one. I had done several before, but I was also doing an Olympic lifting program that was pretty intense. And I was just feeling beat up that day during practice, and, you know, just didn't have the pop that you need for gymnastics. But we were working on it, and I was like, I'm going to give this a shot and try this and practice this new thing that somebody taught me how to do. And I literally had the thought, what's the worst that could happen, as I was doing it. I remember saying that as I was getting into position. I was like, what's the worst that can happen? I fall and, you know, roll over sideways and it doesn't work. And what happened is I rotated halfway around, but I wasn't set correctly. So there was nothing to kind of like keep me going all the way around. So I came down straight on top of my head. I had a Dens fracture in the C2 vertebrae, broke my neck, and basically hit the ground and then crumpled over. Lost all feeling in my body for, luckily it was only like 30 seconds or so. But I had to be taken by ambulance to the hospital, and everybody was amazed that I wasn't either dead or paralyzed from the neck down.
Yeah.
And in this moment, I'm like, am I going to cry during this interview? Because just talking about it kind of brings up all these emotions. But at that point, I was the strongest I had ever been, going through this programming and working with the coaches that I was. And in that instant, it was just all gone.
Yeah.
And as I was kind of like laying on the floor in those first couple minutes, I've heard people say, you know, your life that you've had up to that point flashes before your eyes. But for me, it was like, what does my future look like from here out? Mm-hmm. And I had this very specific thought of me laying in bed, being spoon fed by my mother, being paralyzed and not being able to move.
Yeah.
And I was just like, nope, I'd rather be dead right now.
Yeah.
And it was one of those moments, like people will use the word terrified a lot. Like, oh, I'm terrified of walking down this street, or, you know, trying this thing or something like that. But it was one of those moments that was so intense. I don't use the word terrified anymore, because in that moment I was truly terrified.
Yeah.
And it's even like choking me up to talk about. But I was able to go through the process. I was in a halo for 3 months. I had 4 pins in my head bolted to my chest. And I went back to my parents' house in New York.
Yeah.
Stayed there for 2 weeks and just recovered. And after about a week, I was like, okay, I'm ready to go back.
Yeah.
But everybody was like, nope, you're not allowed to yet. I was like, okay, but I'm going to start making plans to go back. So from the time that I broke my neck to the time I actually went back to work teaching at Temple was about 2 weeks and 2 days.
Wow.
The day after it happened, I sent a mass email to my class and was like, look, I just hurt myself. Here's 3 projects you can do, but we're not going to have class for, you know, this particular moment. But we're going to restart on this date. So I walked back in and started teaching classes like 3 days after I got back to Philadelphia in my halo and everything.
Yeah.
And needless to say, we didn't get much done that first class because everybody was like, what happened and why are you standing right now?
Yeah.
But it was fascinating because I had to relearn how to teach things, because I've always been a very either visual teacher or kinesthetic teacher. Mm-hmm. Either I would put my body through these positions and, you know, this is how you snatch a barbell. This is what an overhead position looks like. Things like that. And all of a sudden I couldn't get my arm above here.
Yep.
So I had to work on my verbal cueing and things like that. And I will still to this day say that breaking my neck was one of the best things that ever happened to me. Because it made me look at everything in a brand new light. And it's because I had had the background of, you know, working in the woods and playing outside and all that kind of stuff, I had never been out of shape. Always been in good shape, always been strong, stuff like that. And then all of a sudden I couldn't walk for long distances. I couldn't hold stuff. And I got a feeling for clients would come to me and they're overweight. They've been, couch potatoes for 20 years. And they're like, I want to get in shape. And while I could understand that logically, I didn't know what it felt like.
Yeah. The inertia, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it was, like I said, it was one of the best things that ever happened to me professionally and personally.
Yeah.
But I remember one of my first goals when I got back to Philadelphia, and like my first movement goals after that was where I lived in Fairmount. There was a Whole Foods that was probably 5 or 6 blocks away. Mm-hmm. And my first goal was to be able to walk from Whole Foods to my house without stopping with like a bag of groceries. And the first time I did it, I walked down, I bought just a couple things. It was, maybe 10 pounds worth of groceries. And I stopped 8 times on the way home to like set it down, catch my breath, let things relax. And it's amazing. I remember that entire walk to this day. I remember that I stopped and sat on, and it was crazy, but it made me realize a much more depth about what I was doing and what was really important. So.
Right. And I'm sure it helped you work with people who, I'm going to assume, because I've been this way, like people begin to work out again after a long time off, and they think that they're supposed to be able to work out, 2 hours or 1 hour or whatever. And they feel so despondent and sorry for themselves when they can't, when like 20 minutes is actually a lot. We froze. Okay, we froze for a second.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And quick little dance and then back to our originally scheduled program. So one of the other things it's done for me is that somebody's like, oh, I can't do that because my ankle hurts or I hurt myself. And I can actually say, I know exactly what this is like. I broke my neck and I had to start back from ground zero. And there's a connection that's built with them because they're like, oh, wow, you did that and we're able to get back to where you are now. It's like being able to actually see somebody being like, oh, I read in a book that if you go through these rehab moments, you'll be able to get back where you are, versus I went through this rehab and this is where I am now and you can see. So it really helped a lot in that aspect. So I get out of my halo, I go to one rehab or physical therapy appointment.
Yeah.
And I was not impressed with the physical therapist at all. He didn't listen to me. He didn't really seem to care about me.
Yeah.
I don't suggest anybody do this, but I went to one physical therapy appointment and then never went back to physical therapy after that. I rehabbed my neck completely to the point where it gave me no issues after about 1.5 years. Some very, very slight neurological issues in my left hand. I just don't quite have the strength there, but for the most part, 0 issues anymore. Got through that. And as I was learning all about this, why can't I squeeze this hand anymore? Learning about how the nervous system works. And this was really my first introduction to it. Because before it was like, these are your muscles, this is how you move, and this is how you move muscles. And muscles are everything in muscles. But I think that this is actually when I first met you, I started to take NKT. And I started digging into it, and I started having all of these questions. And at the time, you had posted on one of the boards, you were like, if anybody needs help, feel free to reach out. And we had a couple of different Skype sessions at that point. Because I was like, I have like 9 different questions and I don't think they're completely related, but I need to like throw them at somebody and have them bat me back answers.
I hope I gave you good answers. I probably didn't.
You gave me fantastic answers because I believe you were either just finishing or just done with your PDTR training.
Okay.
So not only were you able to fill in the holes that I was kind of coming up against, but you were able to be like, give this a shot too.
Yeah.
And just try this out. And it made all the difference in the world. It was fantastic.
Oh, cool.
And that was kind of the time where I started to realize like this human body that we have is far more complicated than I ever realized.
Mm-hmm.
Even all the stuff they taught us in school, and I'm a self-educated nerd. I love to ask questions and read books. And it was so much more than I ever thought. So I dug through the NKT and neurological stuff, and then started to look other places, and it just spiraled at that point. And I started to learn all kinds of things. So professionally, what ended up happening is I started to do a lot of work in an office more so than a gym. I had an office with a table and started doing assessments and stuff like that. And it helped me grow a lot, but at the same time, it wasn't what I wanted to do. I was fixing people, but I felt like I was just fixing them and being like, go out into the world now. Like, I wanted to be the person that they went to afterwards and be like, okay, I'm fixed. Now how do I get really strong? And be like, okay, let's do this thing. So then I kind of transitioned back into weightlifting and brought all that neurological thought into it. And that's when by the time I left Philadelphia, I'm pretty sure I'd worked with almost every single gym in the area, whether it be a CrossFit gym or a regular gym. And it just gave me access to so many different people and so many different bodies and problems. And as I was going through this, I then realized that there was something else that was missing. And again, I'm going to give you credit for this, because this is when you started to transition into your energy work and your psychological work that you do.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I had this, broken neck, massive concussion, all the brain issues that come with that. And I'm not even sure I told this story to you, and I wanted to make sure I told it here, but
okay.
You were doing your Skype sessions, and I was like, I'm going to give this a shot.
Yeah.
So I scheduled something with you, and this was when I was working at Open Box Athletics in South Philly. And I was like, so what does this involve? And you were just like, you just have to lay down in a quiet place and, tap this finger for yes and this finger for no. And I was like, all right, we'll give this a shot. I went into that session believing that it was complete and utter crap. Okay, there's no way this is going to work.
Yeah.
So we chatted, and I laid down, and we did this first clearing. And as you said, there's a line that is like, I now allow your subconscious to release all of this, in however you say it. As you were saying it, I start giggling to myself. And then immediately afterwards, I started bawling my eyes out, twitching all over the place. Like, my whole body just let go of all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And I think, obviously, because I'm experiencing, the time is kind of distorted, but I think there was probably a good 8 or 10 minutes where I just sat there crying, twitching, moving, and just letting all of that stuff go. And up until that point, since I had hurt myself, I hadn't been able to sleep. Before I broke my neck, I could lay down. I could fall asleep in 5 minutes. You couldn't wake me up with a fire alarm next to my head. After I got hurt, it took me hours to fall asleep. I couldn't sleep for more than 2-3 hours at a time. But after that first session with you, I fell asleep within a half hour. I was able to sleep for 6 hours straight. And I was like, to this day, there's still a part of my brain that just thinks this is crap. This isn't real. But I've gone back time and time again to get stuff fixed. And every time it helps release more and more stuff and just let stuff out. So then, to kind of continue on with my progression, I started to look more at people's how the psychological works with the neurological. And how the muscular and skeletal system is just kind of like a baseline that all kind of sits on top of. So now as I train people, I ask them how their day is going, how they feel today. I always try to either shake people's hands or give them a hug so that I can actively kind of connect with them and kind of see what their personal vibrations, if you will, are for that moment. Yeah. So
you're really good at that.
I've always been somebody I feel a lot of feels. And because I have my undergrad is in radio production, we did a lot of work on frequencies and understanding sound theory and stuff like that.
Mm.
As you read more of that and read some physics along with that, you start to understand that everything has a frequency to it.
Yep.
Regardless of whether it's a rock in the driveway or the own beats of our hearts. And some of the things that are kind of on my list of things to study are how to use sound frequencies to change the way the body is actually functioning in that point. And, you know, if I play this music while I work out, will I have a better effect versus if I play this music if I work out? Or what if I put headphones in somebody and just play this one particular tone at a low volume? Does that change things? So that's like down the road.
Fun.
Yeah. And there are some people who do it. I know there are people who do it, but it's not one of the more popular things you see around.
So you can be the niche.
Yeah. I always tend to go towards, I've never been one to follow the crowd. I always like to find the small group of people who are doing things and seem to be doing really well with it. And I'm like, I'm going to go hang out with them and see what's up. Because that's more interesting.
You know, Jordan Terry has worked with this.
Yeah, I've seen that he's done some stuff with this. And I know that, especially in like traditional Chinese medicine, they have the like singing bowls and chimes and things like that. But one of the things that in my personal practice and in my professional practice and in my personal fitness, I'm always trying to find the way that it works with everybody, because I can get somebody in, you know, if I get a power lifter in who weighs 220 pounds and squats 800, getting him to buy into singing bowls is going to be difficult.
Yeah.
But if I can figure out the mechanism behind the singing bowls, the frequencies that are used,
yep,
I can kind of manipulate the delivery of how that is given to people. So.
Yeah, and it's a really cool thing to think about because, you know, well, for me, I've been playing with this for a few years now. Different music that I work out with. And I find that the music I used to work out to, I can't work out to anymore.
Yeah.
Pop, hard rock, heavy metal. Yep. I don't have enough. It's like I don't have enough of that vibration of energy inside of me to be able to. It doesn't motivate me, and in fact turns me off and makes me not want to move my body.
Yeah, it almost takes energy or spends it as opposed to
weird. You're right. It kind of like makes you feel low.
Yeah.
So I listen to a lot of mantra when I work out, which is probably weird for most people to imagine working out to like Deva Premal or Krishna Das or something, but it works really well for me. And there are certain artists like Jason Mraz, who is really like his songs have a beat to them. They have like a higher, it's not so slow, but they have a very high vibration for me. I can feel that they are very positive. Their energy is very positive. So I can work out to that. But I'm trying to imagine like you're trying to get people a little bit sympathetic, right? When they're lifting, and you can't do that with mantra. It's like very parasympathetic.
Well, so
I don't think anyway.
Yeah. So this is actually a thing that I'm kind of keeping an eye on, and I say passively studying because I'm not actively going after the information, but if it pops up, I'll kind of dig around. My former partner, Megan Dupree, is convinced that lift, and we've had this debate many, many times. It's one of our fun things that we do together. Okay. She's convinced that you can be your strongest, that to be your strongest, you need to be in a parasympathetic state.
Oh.
And that
parasympathetic.
Yeah, to be, good, explosive Olympic lifters, power lifters, to get the most out of your body, you can get it from a parasympathetic state because you're not wasting energy, getting hyped up and, kind of almost running out of energy, running at a very high red line. You're going to run out of more energy versus running at this nice sustain where I can control everything.
Interesting. Okay.
And I believe that there's something to that because there are plenty of lifters that are, when they go up to a really heavy squat, deadlift, snatch, whatever it is, they're very calm.
Yeah.
And you can see they walk up and they take this big breath before they go. They pop their shoulders a couple times, and all of a sudden they just look like they relax.
Yeah.
They set their hands, they set the bar on their back, and then the weight just moves. Like it looks effortless. And it's absolutely a thing that happens.
Okay, so here's a thought for you.
Yeah.
Is it not parasympathetic necessarily, but that they're grounding?
Could absolutely be.
They're setting their energy down into the earth and pulling up the strength from the earth, and then moving the bar.
Yeah, it could absolutely be. But flip side, yeah, and the flip side more so where I come from, because I'm a meathead at heart. I love to lift really heavy things, and it's just close to my soul at this point in my life. I work out with a lot of those kind of meathead guys who will, take a big old sniff of ammonia before they go, and they're yelling at the barbell, and they'll do the same thing. They'll, yell and scream, sniff ammonia, look like they're going to pass out, and then they'll get under. And I've watched people get under an 800-pound squat and then just down and up, and it looks awesome. And I was like, that man is not parasympathetic right now.
No.
So I think the answer, as with most things, is somewhere kind of pendulum in the middle. You don't want to be all the way to one side, and you don't want to be all the way to the other. And depending on who you are and what your experiences are and how you do things kind of dictates whether you shift a little bit more one way or another. Because I actually am more of a calm lifter. Mm-hmm. Before I go, I will relax in the corner and I'll sit and just kind of sink. I think of it as sinking into my soul. I just kind of come down to this point just above, or, right down in my solar plex, and then back into my torso. And there's something in there that I can kind of find that just settles me in the place that I need to be. And that's where I feel my strongest. So, like I said, this is a debate I've been having for years now, and I don't know what the answer is, and I just enjoy playing with it.
Everything for me, I've done a lot of exploration of science. Been a PT since, I've been a PT since 2001.
Yeah.
So a lot of things are very rational and scientific for me for a long time. Now it's like, you're visual, you'll probably understand this. I want to see what happens if I look with my third eye at people's energy when they're lifting. So what I heard from what you said is that you are bringing all of your energy from your energy field into your core, into your center.
Yeah.
Into your physical form. And a lot of people's energy is kind of like up above their heads or dispersed other places, thinking about other people and other things. But you're bringing all of your energy into your physical form to create max effort.
Yes.
I want to know, like, it would be fun to watch one of those lifters that does the ammonia and then rubs himself out. Like, what, if I think about what that might look like with my third eye, it's like igniting a fire in their sacral chakra or their solar plexus that kind of sparks up and moves out so that they have enough energy, enough chi to lift.
Yeah, could absolutely be.
I think that's such a fun thing to think about.
One of my favorite things to do, I'll always tell people my hobby is having hobbies. I've done so many things over the years. I've competed in so many sports. Because I just think competition is fun. It's fun to, go in with a group of people and be like, let's see who's, good at this or the best at it. And I've competed in everything from powerlifting to Olympic lifting. Other end of the spectrum, I was an amateur swing dancer and won a couple medals doing that. Just everything, whatever I find interesting, I'll spend anywhere from 8 months to a couple years just digging in. Yeah, mastering to a certain level. Until I either find something else or I realize that to take the next step in that is going to require another level of dedication that it's just not there for me. It's like, that is not my thing. I just do that more so for fun. With lifting, there have been points, and there will be plenty more points where I dedicate probably more to it than I should. And I'll let other things go just so I can have the extra energy to run that path.
Yeah.
doing all of these different things and playing around with different stuff, it all just kind of comes back to, you know, this is how my body moves and this is how I like to move it. And it's just, movement itself is fascinating to me.
Yeah, I love that. I'm in a place right now where I had things I liked to do when I was little, but I don't know that I ever had anything that I loved.
Yeah.
Like, I actually love to dance, but the way I used to dance, I don't want to dance that way anymore. No desire to do salsa dancing ever again, probably.
That's kind of what I did with swing dancing. When I started it, it was like, this is this fun thing. I'm a horrible dancer, by the way. Was never danced up until this point, but I eventually met somebody who had danced for many years, and we were going to do a professional trade. Yeah. She was going to do some massage therapy work on my neck to help me kind of continue and progress there.
Yeah.
And I found out she was a swing dancer. I was like, okay, in this trade, I'll help train you and get you strong and fix some of your problems. You work on me, but I also want some dance lessons.
Yeah.
And kind of as I worked up through there, I got to the point where I was competing and having fun, but then it became, okay, now you need to kind of buckle down and start working on these things. And, you know, you need to refine these movements. And it started to get really serious. And I was like, this is taking the fun out of it. And I was just like, I'm kind of out at this point. So, and I feel bad doing that because teachers love me because I'm a great student. Right. I love to ask questions and get better at things. And I'm always progressing. And I love to send messages and being like, remember that thing you were trying to teach that I was horrible at? I figured it out. And then almost always it comes to that point of just like, yeah, I'm not really doing this anymore.
Yeah, I'm similar. I have these fascinations, and then it's like once I get beyond where I can teach myself, I kind of not interested anymore.
Yeah. After
I'm over it.
There's also a point in anything you compete in that at more so the lower amateur level, as you start to come up, it's just people who are doing it. You know, we train in our garages or, you know, in our studios, whatever. But at a certain point, the political and social aspect of the competition comes in. And that's usually my ceiling. As soon as that stuff comes in, I'm out. I don't want anything to do with it.
Not interested anymore.
Yeah. Yep. There are so many fun things to do in this world. I'm not going to deal with all that stuff. I never went to high school, so I didn't have to deal with all the high school stuff. Yeah, and I don't want to deal with it as an adult.
You got to skip all the nonsense.
Somebody's driving by on a lawnmower.
What are you totally into now? What is your latest obsession?
My latest obsession right now is actually getting back to my lifting and my running. So my neck break was my first big injury, and that happened about 6 years ago now. In August, so 8 months ago, something to that effect, I was doing some tree trimming for my father and fell from about 18 to 20 feet and broke both my legs. I broke the talus on the right leg and the tibial plateau on the left. Right before that, I was getting into long distance trail running with some pretty big aspirations in that, because distance trail running is like the most niche sport there is, especially once you get past 10 miles.
Yeah.
And there are, 25K races, there are 50K races, which is like 31 and a half miles, something like that. There's 50-mile races, there's 100-mile races, there's a couple of 200-mile races in the US.
What do they call it, a double ultra or something?
Yeah. Ultra, technically an ultra run is anything past a marathon. So, but there's, 100-mile century runs, and basically as I was getting into this, I was like, I love being outside. I can't stand running on a road, and trail running is kind of like the perfect thing for me. So before I fell, I was doing a lot of that and had done a couple timed events where the one I did was a 3-hour trail run, and it was a 1-mile loop. You just run it as many times as you can in 3 hours. First 150 feet of this run is just straight up a rock hill. Like you basically have to hike it, and then you kind of like run the flat and run down, and you just, do it as many times as you can in 3 hours. And I had so much fun. It was a blast. So my starter goal was to run a 50-miler and then see if I still enjoyed it, run a 100-miler.
Yep.
So endurance-wise was as good as I had ever been. And I had married that with my strength training, so I was still really strong, and then fell and broke both legs. And I forget exactly why we were talking about this.
I was asking what you were into it, or what you were into now.
So, because I was running and having that kind of fun, when I fell, I broke the talus on my right foot, but also had a massive dislocation at the same point. They tried to put it in the ambulance. It didn't work. When I got to the hospital, they tried to put it in. They couldn't get it popped out to actually get it back in. So it was during my second surgery, I think, that they had me completely under. And from what I understand, they had one person holding my leg and the other person holding my foot, and literally had to yank it to get it to pop back in.
Yeah.
So I have some pretty significant rehab issues that I'm dealing with my right foot. And if anybody knows how to rehab a broken talus, please feel free to contact me.
I feel like that's Joseph Schwartz's territory.
Yeah, I've actually heard of Joseph Schwartz, and I believe his name is Scott Fields. Is that his name?
Oh yeah, Scott. He's great.
I believe Scott actually broke his talus, and he went back to
Scott. Talk to Joseph. One of them. They'll know.
Yeah.
Or you know what? You can figure it out like all the other things that you figured out.
Right. Well, what I love to do with teachers is I love to find people, ask the questions, and be like, go look over there, because I'll run in that direction and find out all kinds of things.
Yeah, just point me in the right direction.
Exactly. Just like I kind of did with you. I was like, I came to this spot, now I have 1,000 questions. And you were like, go look here and here.
Yeah.
And I went here and here and came up with all kinds of stuff. But what I'm doing right now is trying to get my foot to function correctly and dealing with how my body's adjusting to that. I've kind of gone back to the rehab aspect of it, because I can't, if this is my right foot, it doesn't set flat on the ground. It very much goes like this. Like this.
Yeah.
I kind of walk on that fifth metatarsal and with a foot kicked out. So my left hip is tightened up. Like I have all kinds of structural things.
Yeah. So you're figuring out how to come back into alignment.
Yeah, I'm very much trying to come back into alignment at this point, and which to me is fun. It's like a new I hate puzzles. Give me a jigsaw puzzle, I'll burn it. I hate them. But if there's a body with a problem, I like to kind of see like, this is influencing this, is influenced this is why this is twisted, and those kinds of things. So I kind of jump back into the anatomy and physiology of what's happening.
Yeah.
That's as far as my fitness goes. I haven't worked out in 2.5, 3 months since quarantine kicked in.
Yeah.
But I've been kind of just playing with my own body and figuring out what it's doing these days and what it wants, and seeing what parts of those are physiological and neurological, and also what parts are psychological, and dealing with my thoughts about my foot. Because when I had my surgeries, I love the scar that's on my knee. I think it's the coolest thing. It's like this big S curve, and it's got like the Frankenstein stitches in it. I think it's awesome. But for the first month and a half after the surgery on my ankle, I couldn't even look at it. It was just hated it. Yeah, it was really bad. So working on myself psychologically to accept my foot, and this is the way that it is. I kind of have these like flat lines, and all of a sudden I'm like, it pops up and like, okay, I'm okay with this again. So I kind of grow in this kind of like stair step fashion. And it's gotten a lot better over the past month or so.
Awesome.
To the point where I'm thinking about running. I'm not there yet.
You're pre-planning.
Yeah, I'm starting to plan. I went on a hike the other day after it had rained. And there was this, to call it a stream is laughable, because it was just this like little run of water down the path. And I kind of hopped over it on my left leg, because that leg is functioning fantastically these days. And I hopped over it. And as soon as I did, I started laughing. I was like, that's the most athletic thing I've done in 6 months. It was great. So I'm just kind of playing with my own athleticism and trying to get that back right now.
I love it. I love your whole, I love how you work with your body. It's so kind. It's very inspiring for me. And on that note, I have to go because it's 10 and I have someone.
I'm one of those people I could talk for hours about this stuff.
Yeah, ditto. Me too. How can people reach you if they want to work with you virtually right now?
Yeah, so the best way for people to find me is to either find me on Facebook. It's just Sam Farr II. I'm the only one that's there.
Okay.
If you just type in Sam Farr, you'll get a Republican senator from California. He's not the same as I am.
Yeah.
Or the thing that I do that is very different than other people, feel free to just either text me or call me. Underneath where Jamie posts this on Facebook, I'll get my phone number, but 607-279-5088. Tell me who you are and what you're trying to figure out, and I'm more than happy to talk to anybody about it.
Great. Thank you. That's wonderful.
One of the things I do as a teacher, and I'll keep this super short, one of the things I love to do as a teacher is meet people where they're at.
Yeah.
And then show them how to take that next step. So if, people come to me and they're like, I need to get stronger and, gain some healthy weight. I'm going to be like, okay, where are we at now? I'm not going to be like, you need to work out 5 days a week and eat 6 meals a day. If you're eating 2 meals a day, let's, figure out how to get that third meal in, or like, I'm just going to meet you where you're at and then show you how to take that next step.
Nice.
And then when you take that next step, I'll show you how to take the next one.
It's very non-overwhelming. I love it.
I've been overwhelmed by coaches and trainers before, and it doesn't help anybody. So
no. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much, Sam.
Absolutely.
I so appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I'll be reaching out to you soon and sharing this later today.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. And I'm sure many people appreciate everything you've done for us.
Yeah. Thank you. It's been really a gift. Yeah. All right. I'm going to stop recording.